Night fell like a thick, dark curtain over the palace. You could feel the tension in the air. Every torch was burning low, casting long, dancing shadows. And every single footstep echoed down the long, empty halls. Amara, our heroine, wrapped herself in a dark shawl. She was a ghost in her own home, slipping silently from the eastern wing of the palace. Tucked against her chest, she could feel the weight of the golden lion's crest the king had given her. It was a strange feeling, part comfort, part a heavy, heavy burden. She moved with a speed and a grace that surprised even herself, hugging the shadows, darting from one dark corner to the next. The guards, with their swinging lanterns, were like slow, predictable pendulums. She avoided their light easily, but the night itself seemed alive. Every whisper of the wind sounded like a warning, a hushed voice telling her to hurry. Her destination was the old river gate. At the far end of the palace compound, it was almost completely hidden behind a thick curtain of vines and crumbling stone, a forgotten exit. Nobody used it anymore. It was a straight shot into the deep, dark forest that bordered the royal walls. As she reached the gate, a figure emerged from the shadows. A tall man, leaning on a spear. His voice was low, but firm, cutting through the silence of the night. "Show me your proof." Without a word, Amara handed him the emblem, the golden lion. The guard studied it for a moment, his face illuminated by the faint moonlight. Then, he bowed his head respectfully. "Follow me," he said, quickly. They stepped onto a narrow, creaking bridge that stretched over the dark, inky water below. The air was filled with the sounds of the night frogs croaking in a rhythmic chorus, the haunting cry of an owl somewhere in the distance. Every sound made Amara's heart jump. She couldn't stop herself from glancing back, watching the palace lights grow smaller and smaller, fading into the distance. Halfway across the bridge, the guard suddenly froze. He held up a hand, his body tensed. "Someone's following us," he muttered, his voice barely a whisper. Amara's heart felt like it was going to beat right out of her chest. And then she saw it. From the dark tree line on the other side, a flicker of metal glinted in the moonlight. "Arrows! Run!" The guard's voice was a desperate shout. He shoved her forward, propelling her toward the safety of the forest. In that same instant, two arrows sliced through the air. One thudded into the wooden rail right beside her, making her flinch. The other found its mark, striking the guard in the shoulder. He cried out in pain and stumbled, falling to his knees. "Go!" he shouted, his voice strained. "Don't stop, just go." Tears streamed down Amara's face, but she didn't stop. She stumbled and ran, crashing through the thick brush. Thorny branches tore at her wrapper, at her skin. Fear was a physical thing, clawing at her chest, making it hard to breathe. Behind her, she could hear the heavy thud of boots on the ground and men's voices shouting orders. Queen Chidera's men. They were closing in. She didn't dare look back, not until the sound of the river was just a faint whisper behind her and the shouts had faded. Exhausted and terrified, she leaned against a tree, trying to catch her breath. And that's when she saw him. A figure appeared through the trees, silent as a shadow, cloaked and hooded. "Amara," a voice said. She froze. That voice, she knew that voice. It sent a shiver down her spine, but this time, it wasn't from fear. "Your Majesty," she whispered, her voice trembling. The figure lowered his hood. It was the king himself. His clothes were covered in travel dust, but his eyes were as sharp and clear as ever. "You didn't think I'd let you face this alone, did you?" he said, his voice quiet and steady. Relief, so powerful it almost buckled her knees, washed over her, followed immediately by a wave of confusion. "But the queen," she started. "Let her search," the king interrupted, a grim look on his face. "By the time she finds what she's looking for, the game will already be over." He turned, his gaze fixed on the dark, winding path that led deeper into the forest. "Come," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "The road ahead decides everything." Amara took one last look back, toward the faint, distant glow of the palace lights. The life she had known, the only life she had ever known, was back there, behind her. A world of unknowns, of danger and uncertainty, waited ahead. And somewhere in between, she knew fate was already writing the next chapter of her story. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. What a cliffhanger, right? The story is just getting started. What do you think will happen to Amara and the king in the Forest of Exile? And what about the queen's revenge? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss episode 14. We'll see you there.